In my previous videos, I received a lot of comments asking for my .dot files, but instead of just copy my messy files up to GitHub, I decided I would refactor, add comments, and polish everything up. The result was my own personalized NeoVim starter kit that I'm sharing with you today. In my opinion, it is a very well-structured, clean configuration for getting started with NeoVim. Follow along with me, and I think you'll agree. The starter kit uses the Lazy NVim package manager, which allows plugins to be added simply by dropping a plugin spec file into your plugins folder. Each plugin file in my configuration is well commented, and you can remove any plugin that you don't need or want simply by deleting the file. If you missed my earlier video where I go over Lazy in detail, check it out here. A lot of NeoVim users recommend Kickstart NVim, which I agree is a great resource due to its simplicity, but I believe this starter kit directory structure is much easier to maintain. You can find the link to the starter kit in the show notes. Disclaimer: these configurations are based on my personal dev setup and may not be right for everyone. I take no responsibility for the endless hours of NeoVim configuration you are about to embark on and the unhealthy bond that you will form with your editor. Proceed at your own risk. First step is to make sure you have all of the prerequisites installed. I won't go into detail on how to install the prereqs, but you can find links to detailed instructions in the starter kit. You will need the following: a true color terminal. This is to make NeoVim's color scheme look pretty. You'll of course need to install NeoVim, version 0.9.1 or later. A nerd font. This is so you can have nice icons in NeoVim. ripgrep. This is needed for Telescope Fuzzy Finder. Xclip for system clipboard support, and depending on which language servers you need, you may need Node and NPM installed. The starter kit also includes a few optional configurations for tmux and your shell. Tmux is a way to organize multiple terminal sessions, windows, and panels, and works very nicely in conjunction with NeoVim. There is also a snippet undershell settings that will set your terminal to use Vim motions. You can put this in your bash RC or equivalent file. Feel free to set those up, but today I'm going to mainly focus on NeoVim, so let's keep going. If you are not starting from scratch and want to replace your current NeoVim configuration, make a backup first. To back up NeoVim and its corresponding metadata, run the following commands. After installing all of the prerequisites and making any necessary backups, you can start NeoVim by running NVim to make sure it works. This will be the ugly vanilla configuration before adding any color schemes or plugins. If you are new to Vim or NeoVim and are now trapped in your editor, you can quit with :q. Next, we are going to clone the starter kit repo and copy the relevant files into our NeoVim configuration directory. Be careful, if you didn't make a backup, this will replace your existing NeoVim configuration. Let's start NeoVim again. Once NeoVim is started, you may see a number of messages from Lazy, Mason, and TreeSitter installing plugins, LSP servers, and syntax highlighting. You may see some initial errors because there may be plugins that are still installing. Press Enter if instructed to. Wait a bit for everything to finish installing. Press Q to close the Lazy UI. Once everything is done installing, quit and restart NeoVim one more time. Now everything should be set up, but it's possible that some plugins are not working correctly. Run the check health command from within NeoVim and correct any errors that you encounter. Be diligent, this could take some time. Once you've investigated and corrected any errors, you can start NeoVim again, but this time we are going to start it with an argument. Type nvim space, followed by the path to your NeoVim configuration directory. The first thing you'll notice is that the old gross vanilla NeoVim is gone, and now things are looking very nice. Now it's time to walk through the structure of your new NeoVim configuration. First, we'll start with the init.lua file. This is the entry point for NeoVim. The first block of code is to bootstrap Lazy, which is our plugin manager. The next block instructs Lazy to load all of the plugins in our plugins directory. The last block loads any non-plugin configuration, in this case our key maps and global NeoVim options. Next, let's open our options file. As the name implies, this is where we set global NeoVim options. There are options for session management, relative and absolute line numbers, tabs and indentation, line wrapping, search settings related to case sensitivity, appearance, the clipboard, split windows, and folding. these are just a handful of common options from the hundreds of NeoVim options that exist. Now, let's check out our key maps file. Again, as the name indicates, this is where we will set up all of our key mappings. Some people like to set up their key bindings for each plugin in the individual plugin files, which does have some benefits, but I find that keeping them all in one place is easier to manage. The syntax for key map set is pretty straightforward. The first argument is the mode or modes that the key binding will apply to. Generally, this will be either N for normal mode, I for insert mode, V for visual mode, or some combination of those. The next argument is the sequence of keys that will trigger the mapping. In the starter kit, these are generally prefixed with leader, which is set to the spacebar, followed by a two-letter combination. The first letter is generally used to group common key bindings, and it is common practice to associate one or both letters with a mnemonic device, such as FF for find files or FB for find buffer. The next argument is the action that you want to take when these keys are pressed. This can vary wildly from a single character to a Lua function. The last optional argument is for any special options, which you can read more about using the link in the show notes. Take some time to read through this file and learn the key mappings or edit the key mappings to your liking. Now that we looked at the main entry point and core files, let's walk through the rest of the structure. The FT plugin directory is a way to load different settings per file type. Here you can see I included a markdown.lua file that will override the global options whenever we open a markdown buffer. Files in this directory need to be named as filetype.lua. Notice this is the file type, like Markdown, not to be confused with the file extension, which would be MD in this case. Next is the plugins directory we spoke about earlier. Lazy will automatically load any Lua files in this directory. I've included some great plugins in the starter kit, but if there are any that you don't need or don't like, simply delete the file. Each file in this directory needs to follow Lazy's plugin spec. A plugin can be configured in two forms. The simple form is just a string representing the plugin's short URL. The other form is a Lua table with the first value being your plugin's short URL, followed by a number of optional properties. Some of these properties are related to lazy loading, which we'll cover in a few minutes. The dependencies property allows you to define which plugins are required by this plugin. The ops property is a convenient way to pass options to the plugin that would normally be passed to the setup function. The config property is a way to completely override the loading of a plugin. A lot of plugins provide installation instructions specifically for Lazy, so it is a good idea to refer to the plugin's GitHub page. This can be especially useful for complicated plugins. Now, it's time to explain how to lazy load plugins. First, any plugins that are only loaded as dependencies of other plugins will automatically be lazy loaded. Plugins that are needed for the initial UI, like Color Scheme and Status Line, should not be lazy loaded. For any other plugins that you don't need to be available immediately on startup, there are a couple of options. Setting a plugin's lazy option to true means the plugin will be loaded as soon as it is required. Another really useful way to lazy load a plugin is to set its event option to delay the loading of the plugin until the event occurs. For instance, we set NVim CMP's event to insert enter to load the plugin only after entering insert mode. Lazy also provides a very lazy event to load plugins after NeoVim has finished starting. You can also lazy load based on file type or key bindings. Now that you understand the basic structure of a plugin spec, I'll briefly go over each plugin in the starter kit so you can decide if you want to keep it or not. The Auto Pairs plugin automatically inserts the ending bracket, parenthesis, or quote when you type the starting one. ColorScheme.lua is to set up your color scheme. I'm using Kanagawa, but you can change it to whatever you like. The Git Blame plugin will turn on inline virtual text for whatever line you are on, showing the last person that made a commit. Harpoon allows you to jump directly to per project marks. Shout out to the Primeagen. Indent Blank Line shows visual indentation guides and highlights for supported languages. LSP.lua configures Mason and other LSP-related plugins. The Mason command will allow you to install additional LSP servers as well. Lua line is a helpful status line that appears at the bottom of each buffer. NVim CMP is an auto-completion plugin that integrates nicely with the built-in LSP support. The DAP or Debug Adapter Protocol plugins enable debugging. You will need to configure one or more DAP configurations at the bottom of nvim-dap.lua. I've included a link in that file with instructions. nvimtree is the file explorer that I've been using during this video. Type G ? When you are in the tree to learn more. QuickFix-DD is a great little plugin that allows you to delete entries from your QuickFix list. If you missed my video about the QuickFix list, you can find it here or in the show notes. Telescope is an amazing plugin which allows fuzzy finding over almost any list source you can think of. TreeSitter is a parser that builds a syntax tree so that syntax highlighting and other syntax-based actions work more accurately. Vim Commentary provides a way to comment and uncomment lines of code. Vim Maximizer provides quick actions to maximize NeoVim windows. The Vim REST Console plugin is a REST client integrated directly with NeoVim. If you missed my video on how to use this plugin, you can find it here or in the show notes. The last plugin I've included is the Vim tmux Navigator, which allows seamless switching between NeoVim and tmux windows and panels using the same key bindings. In addition to these great plugins, it is also very easy to add a new plugin. For example, if we want to include the Surround plugin, you simply copy the lazy snippet from their GitHub page, create a new file in the plugins directory called surround.lua, and paste the snippet after the return keyword. After restarting NeoVim, the plugin now allows you to add and remove surrounding brackets, parentheses, quotes, and more. The last file I want to talk about is the lazy lock file. Once you have everything loaded the way you want, make sure to save your lazy lock JSON file, and you can even check this file into source control. This file allows you to restore your plugin configuration back to a known working state by running the lazy restore command. You can also run this on another system to make sure your configurations are always in sync. If a future plugin update breaks something, just roll it back. As a bonus, I've also included my tmux configuration with some nice settings, and a MIME types file which fixes an issue with opening local markdown files using Firefox on Linux. For additional NeoVim resources, you can check out my NeoVim playlist on YouTube, here or in the show notes. Make sure to subscribe to see more great NeoVim videos like this in the future.